we will be talking about angle pairs in geometry. These are basic pairs that you really need to know their definitions as well as the theorems for them. That's very important when we get to proofs. So let's begin. The first type of angle pair that we're going to talk about are adjacent angles. Adjacent angles are two angles that share a common vertex, a common side, and no common interior points. We see that angles 1 are adjacent. They have this common vertex of B as well as share this side here. That's what makes them adjacent angles. A linear pair is two adjacent angles whose non-common sides form opposite rays. So here's the common side and then the common vertex, making these angles adjacent angles. Then we have opposite ray BC, and that's opposite to BA. That forms a straight line. So we see that because these form a straight line, we know that they are supplementary as well. That's really the theorem for a linear pair. If two angles form a linear pair, then the angles are supplementary. You do not need to write this smaller font here. The main theorem is listed right there. That's really the important thing that you need to write under the theorem column in your notes. Here we have vertical angles. We see that we have two lines, kind of make an X, and whose sides form two pairs of opposite rays or straight lines. Notice vertical angles are not adjacent because they do not share a side. So for example, angle 1 is formed here, and that is opposite from angle 2. These are vertical angles. Okay, they do not share any sides, but they do kind of share this vertex here. Angles 3 and 4 are also vertical. Vertical angles are always equal in measure, and that's basically the vertical angle theorem. Vertical angles are congruent. So again, you do not need to copy this smaller font. Just this main theorem will be just fine. Here we have complementary angles. There are two angles whose sum measures up to 90 degrees. They can be adjacent, but they don't have to be. Angles P and Q are not adjacent, but they are complementary because the sum is 90 degrees. We can remember that because complementary, C for corner. If they are adjacent, they form a corner. This is the theorem that you need to write for complementaries. Complements of the same angle or congruent angles are congruent. Supplementary angles are two angles whose whose measure is 180 degrees. Again, they can be adjacent or they are not adjacent. As long as you have two angles that add up to 100 degrees, they are considered supplementary angles. And we can remember supplementary S for straight line. Here is the theorem for supplementary angles. It looks a lot like the complements one, just kind of replace it with the supplements. Supplements of the same angle or congruent angles are congruent. And those are your basic angle pairs in geometry.